You don't notice it at first. That's the problem. It doesn't look like failure. It looks normal. You wake up. You go through your day. You handle what you need to handle. And nothing feels completely wrong, but nothing moves either. You tell yourself you're just figuring things out, that you'll get serious soon, that when the time is right, you'll give it everything. But you've been saying that for a while now. And what you don't see is that something is quietly working against you. Not outside, inside. It's subtle. It doesn't scream. It just sits there. You feel it when you hesitate, when you almost decide, but don't. You feel it when you know what needs to be done, but delay it. You feel it when you start something and slowly lose intensity. It's not that you're incapable. It's that you're not fully engaged, and that's where it begins. You drift, not dramatically, just slightly, a little less urgency, a little less focus, a little less intention, and over time, that becomes your standard. But here's what you don't realize. Drift doesn't just slow you down, it reshapes you. It changes how you think. You stop expecting more from yourself. You stop pushing when things get uncomfortable. You start choosing ease without even noticing you're doing it. And eventually, you don't even recognize the version of you that used to care more. That's how quiet it is. It becomes a pattern. You delay. Then you justify the delay. You say you needed more time, more clarity, a better moment. And that sounds reasonable, but it's not. It's avoidance with a better explanation. And the more you explain it, the more acceptable it becomes. Until one day, you don't even question it anymore. You just operate like that. Then something else starts happening. You lose energy. Not physical energy, mental energy. Because every time you don't act, you create tension, unfinished decisions, unfinished actions, unfinished intentions. And they stay in your mind, taking space, pulling focus, draining clarity. So now, even when you want to move, you'll feel heavier than you should. Not because life is harder, but because you're carrying everything you didn't finish. And then comes the second layer. You start overthinking. Every decision feels heavier than it should. You sit on things longer. You weigh options longer. You wait for clarity instead of creating it. And slowly, you stop moving with conviction. You don't trust your own direction anymore, so you pause. Again and again. And eventually, you get used to being stuck. Not because you chose it, but because you never interrupted it. Then there's the quiet voice underneath all of it. Doubt. Not loud, not dramatic, just consistent. It doesn't stop you instantly. It just adjusts how you move. You start second-guessing small decisions. You hesitate before committing. You question if it's worth the effort. And because it's subtle, you don't fight it. You adapt to it. You start playing smaller, not on purpose, but because part of you no longer expects more. And that changes everything. Because expectation controls behavior. If you don't expect much from yourself, you won't demand much from your actions. And if your actions don't demand anything from you, nothing grows. Over time, this becomes how you see yourself. Not someone who moves with certainty, but someone who hesitates, someone who waits, someone who needs things to feel right before acting. And once that identity settles in, you stop challenging it. You start protecting it. You tell yourself, this is just how I am. But it's not. It's just what you practiced. Then there's what you allow into your mind. Because you don't operate in isolation. You're constantly absorbing something, what you watch, what you read, what you listen to, and most of it isn't helping you. It pulls your attention, it fragments your focus, it fills your head with noise, and that noise becomes your baseline. So now, even when you try to think clearly, you can't, because your mind is full, not with direction, with distraction. This is what it comes down to. You're not managing your internal environment. You're letting it run on default. Default thoughts, default reactions, default habits. And default never leads anywhere intentional. It just repeats again and again until years pass and nothing meaningful has changed. Not because you couldn't change it, because you never took control of it. And then you start complaining, quietly at first, about circumstances, about timing, about how things aren't lining up, and it feels justified. But every time you do it, you give away a little more control, because complaining shifts responsibility away from you onto everything else. And once that happens, you stop looking for solutions. You start looking for reasons, and reasons keep you exactly where you are. This is how time disappears, not through big mistakes, through repeated small allowances, things you let slide, decisions you delayed, standards you lowered just slightly, and you don't notice it day to day. But over months, over years, it compounds, and one day you look up and realize you're not where you thought you'd be. This isn't about fixing everything at once. It's about interrupting the pattern where it actually happens, in small moments, when you hesitate and choose to move anyway, when you delay and decide now, when you feel resistance and don't step back. That's where it shifts, not in big decisions, in repeated small ones. Because the truth is, you're not stuck. You're just operating on patterns you haven't corrected yet. And once you see them clearly, you have a choice. Keep drifting, or take control, quietly, consistently, without needing to announce it. And over time, that changes everything.